Okay, first on the question of ABC Motsepe and all the leagues under our jurisdiction. The NEC decision is the leagues should play at level 1 when it is safe to do so and less expensive to do so. And of course, we are monitoring the situation. And should there be a need to come with an earlier date or anything, it be safe for the return of those games, the competitions committee of the association will need to give direction. We have already explained and indicated to the league in our JLC meeting to say, should the league continue, we'll want to also promote. And how we do that, it will be informed by the competitions committee, but the official position of the association is the leagues will resume at level 1 when it is safe to do so, because our amateur teams will not afford the cost associated with the bubble, with the safety bubble, and other health protocols as set by the JLC. That was made, and the PSL is aware of that. Mr. Mbuli, like I said, the decision of the NEC was let's play when it is safe to do so and when it is less expensive to do so. So in terms of provinces, they need to wait for the guidance from the competitions committee. The competitions committee has recently, after the meeting of the 20th, said that it will be played when it is safe to do so. So that will apply to all the provinces. So all the plans, you know, when you are in the association, all the plans needs to be approved by the competitions committee. And the competitions committee is not also ignoring the fact that even when the numbers goes down, it does not mean that we'll continue and go back to how we used to do things. We still know that there are health protocols to be observed, and it has assigned the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Ngwenya, to come with the health protocol for amateur football. So that will also be used as part of the guidelines, because we are not saying when the numbers are going down and we are at level 1, we'll just go in without observing all these health protocols which were brought by this pandemic we are facing. So Dr. Ngwenya is also busy working with that, which will be part of the guideline to all provinces. And of course, we'll do things in uniformity. We'll not have Gauteng doing something and Western Cape doing the other thing. So those plans, as far as they are getting submitted, the competitions committee, as the policymakers, they have a role to then establish the return protocol for amateur, which will talk to all provinces. The second season preparations are already underway. Of course, we had said as the association, we first, even though the situation of COVID has posed a lot of challenges, we first need to properly award the champions and players of the season. So we are going to close that season officially. The NEC has declared the league final. So we are going to have a small event where we honor those who performed well in that league and also give the champions their prize monies and their trophies. And of course, as far as the second season is concerned, the preparations are well ahead, and we are just waiting in line with the NEC resolution. When it is safe for them to resume, they will resume. And of course, Mamelodi Sundowns will represent the country in the first edition of Women Champions tournament, which CAF has announced.
CEO, just a follow-up. It's been a question, obviously, the whole season. Exactly how much is Sundowns winning for this season?
Sundowns will be getting 500,000. And position 2, 3, and 4. All in all, the total prize money is R1 million, which will be divided between number 1 and number 4.
Okay, thank you, CEO. It's Musibudi Whited here again. You alluded to that when you spoke about the association having to honor CAF and FIFA in terms of the national teams, especially the juniors. My question is, because we haven't seen schools football this year and it's been written off for the whole of 2020, how has that affected you, or how will that affect the association when it comes to selection of junior national teams, in particular under 17s, and some of those under 20s who are still in school who would have been playing in some of the tournaments, especially the K Motsepe. How is that process unfolding going into 2021?
Well, of course, it poses a serious challenges for coaches, and I believe that the different coaches have kept data of players. When the football resumes, they will need to make follow-up and ensure that they get the best out of them. Of course, the impact of COVID to all national teams has been a huge one. And for instance, Banyana, Bafana coach and everyone says we are coming with plans. They should be presenting plans starting in 2 weeks' time. We should be meeting and they should be presenting the plans on how they are going to deal with this challenge.
CEO, just still on these operational matters. You are also coming us to for the first time. How is the restructuring process? Maybe if you can give how has been. I think this has been your first 2 or 3 months in office. How has been this period, especially on things away from the returning to football, especially for professional football, and also if you can just update on how is the restructuring process going on, because I understand we've seen even some of the colleagues confirming that they've left the FA as well. And I'm asking this question because there's another critical position here of the technical director, which is very central in how you're functioning, especially on football matters going forward. On how far are you in terms of filling that position?
Okay, Mr. Mbuli, the first one on restructuring. Restructuring is an HR matter one. But as the Chief Executive Officer, will not run away from the fact that we were negatively impacted by this COVID. And 19 of our staff members have taken the voluntary separation agreement. I will be getting a report because I'm not directly involved in that process. I've given HR and the CFO and some general managers a responsibility to deal with that. So they will be giving me, the report soon. But what I know currently is that we have 19 people. We had a target, so they will be giving report in terms of targets of reduction. And then as far as the TD position is concerned, well, we are in an unfortunate situation that we cannot appoint someone to stay at home because we are in this COVID, and football is not given the right to come back fully. So the process have started that I can give you guarantee, and we are taking our time so that we get the right candidate, the right person to fill that. And of course, we are not going to rush it because currently under this level 3, we are not allowed to be fully operational. So it will not be wise to appoint someone to stay at home. But that process is open, and I'm attending to it.
Mm-hmm. So what type of a candidate are you looking for there, and in that TD position?
Of course, there is a guiding document from FIFA. There is a technical committee which continuously give the guidelines. But in terms of TD, you need someone who understands the technical aspect of the game. You need someone who will speak to Vision 2022, which was crafted by the association, ensure that it attains. You need someone who will ensure that it gives that support to national teams to achieve what the association wants to achieve. And we have included a number of people to say, when the time is ready to interview the people, who do we get? And we of course, as we have said, that the former TD, Neltovi, will be assisting us and others, and the technical committee will play a central role in identifying the right candidate.
Check. I believe that Kaizer Chiefs wrote to SAFA just asking FIFA to give them the leeway in terms of their case because of this COVID-19, which is delayed things. Have you received any feedback from FIFA, and does that mean that if this case continues and they happen to win the league, that they will not participate in the CAF Champions League? Can you just help in terms of that?
Well, we have not received anything from FIFA because I think they are talking directly with the club. They are sending they've been change of communication, because once it gets out of FIFA and go to CAS, it's between the club now and the decision makers. If it was communication from FIFA, FIFA could have given us that. But CAS is busy preparing to have a virtual hearing for their matters. I don't know how far they are with the Chiefs matter. And of course, the regulations are clear that the Chiefs will not participate in transfer up until the question has been dealt with. So we are waiting for both CAS and FIFA to give them the directive as far as the question you have asked. How will it impact them in terms of this current transfer window?
Striker?
CEO, thanks very much for coming, and very candid of you at quite a tricky time as well. Just a question on the 18 provincial technical officers. There's been some confusion on that. I've had indications that the PTOs were being removed, and this was part of the reason for Neil Tovey to leave as technical director, because he felt it crippled development. The SAFA communications director said that's not the case, and those 18 PTOs are in negotiations with you. Can you just clarify the confusion on that? There's also been some concerns raised from within the organization to me that the removal of those PTOs would actually cripple development and Vision 2022. But thanks again for coming.
Mark, I think you need to, we need not mix the contractual issues with what you hear from people. Let's clarify it, starting with what was the relationship between the PTOs and the association. The PTOs were contracted to the association up until March. Their contract has expired. With contract expiring, we have released all of them. And of course, after you've employed someone, you then have to make a check of, say, was it wise to have two instead of one? What actually have they done? And those are the kind of discussions we had. And unfortunately, football is now at a standstill. It's not play. When football returns, we'll then make a decision of saying, do we need one? Do we need two? And re-engage them if we feel that there is a need. And of course, it was not the reason, and I'm sure even the TD, the outgone TD, Mr. Tovey has made it very clear that it was not the reason why he has left. He has given you his reasons why he has left. So when we value the contribution which was made by the PTOs, but time and again, you need to evaluate and say, what do I need going forward? And that's the process I'm engaged in to make a decision whether we need them going forward. Have they given us value for the money spent on them? And if we need them, in what format and under which conditions do we need them? So that's the process. And of course, the impact is we are not fully operational. It will not be wise to say we want to rush and renew contracts of PTOs for them to stay at home, because there is no football activity taking place. So at the right time, we'll make the right determination which speaks to development, Mark.
Thank you.
Just to go back, CEO, last week we had the CAF SG here, and we were talking about in the event of other leagues maybe being declared null and void, and then there's the arrangement. Has CAF been in touch with you with regards to who will represent South Africa in the CAF Interclub competitions next season. And I know that this is a double-edged question, because it involves the PSL completing its program, or it also involves the PSL informing you about the way forward.
One, we are fortunate that the president of the association is also the member of the executive of CAF, and they had the executive decision at an executive committee meeting where a decision was taken that in countries where the league has not been completed, like Nigeria and any other country, those who represented the country in the previous edition will then become the representative. So if the league on Friday decided that they are no longer continuing, it will mean Mamelodi Sundowns, Orlando Pirates will go back to the Champions League.
Okay. Sorry, just a quick follow-up on this one, because we're still talking about the resumption of the league. Having seen Zambia restarting last week, I mean, Tanzania is in the process of completing its program now. They've declared the champions. I think they're just left with 2 rounds of fixtures. Morocco is coming back also by the end of this month. Egypt is coming back on the 7th of next month. For a big footballing country like South Africa, and the top league that we have on the continent as well, with all these countries that I've mentioned, I'm not mentioning European leagues deliberately, I'm just focusing on Africa. Don't you think the situation now, COO, we're a bit of under pressure as South Africa to show that we are a leading footballing country on the continent, and we should lead by example and complete our program?
The position of South African Football Association is that the league needs to be played to a finish. And we have made that plea in many of the meetings. And like I've always said, we have went back and forth. Remember that when we started, we were saying level 1, but had to come back to this level and say, if there are safety measures and the government is happy, we are happy for the league to start. So I think our commitment has been shown from the beginning that our interest is to have the league starting, but of course not ignoring the basic fact that we also need to save life. So I think the pressure should not lead us to do wrong things. And for as long as the things are done in the right way, the South African Football Association's position is very clear. We need football to resume. We need lives to be saved, because it will not be nice to take what Zambia is doing, get into pressurized, get into the games. Then when you leave with 10 players who have lost their lives. We would have acted irresponsibly. So we are saying we support the return, and we also want to maintain what you are saying, that the standard of the league should not decline because of COVID, but we need to give respect to the lives of people who are participating in these games.
CEO Letabo again, just to go back to the SNWL, is the format for the new season, for the second season, going to remain 12 teams, or you're going with also adding the 2 teams that were promoted from the SAFJA League last season? And is there going to be any kind of induction to those teams? And just also a bit of a follow-up on Lungile's question, why not are the women getting someone at a level of a TD for women's football?
Well, let me start with the last one. When you have 2 TDs, it has proven to be an exercise which was not working well, because you then don't have, you then need to have to separate the programs and say, this is specific for women, this is specific for male. So that's what I'm saying. First, the TD position, we are not saying we are looking for a male necessarily. If there is a female who is qualified, who applies, with other TDs will consider. When we talk about TD, we're not looking at the gender. It can be a male or female. And should it be a male, we'll still get, should it be a female, we'll still get a general manager, someone responsible for women football. So the TD is not meant exclusively for males. It is open for all genders and people must apply. Because when you talk about a TD, you're talking about the whole technical planning of the association. Not technical planning for male, technical planning for female. It's just like when you go for your youth football, you have both males and females. When you say you're planning for youth, you're planning for both genders. So we are saying that position is open for everyone, but we are saying also that we need to get someone specifically dealing with women football issues, and that we'll get. Whether it will be at the TD level or general manager level is the other thing. But the TD position, Letabo, is not restricted for males. If there is a female who says, I can do the TD job, she meet the requirements, we'll consider that person. Then on the question of the league, yes, my Indies and JVW have been promoted and they will be taken through the induction. So now it means that we have another 2. Remember when the league started, we had said, up until the league reached the full complement of 16, will not be relegating, will be promoting. So once we have reached the number of 16 through the SASO League promotion, then we'll be starting with the relegation. And of course, they will need to be inducted, and that will be done as soon as the conditions permit.
CEO, obviously having took over the reins as an acting CEO, you've encountered so many challenges in your first few months as an acting CEO. Is it something that will interest you? Is it something that you'll want to do on a permanent basis if an opportunity was to represent itself when after you, or when you've completed your 6 months at the helm? And is SAFA going through financial woes? We've seen obviously players confirming that they got paid last week for a camp that took place last year. We've seen the Baxter issue. Are you going through a financial woes at SAFA?
Let me start with your first question. Of course, I'm one person who believes that you learn during the tough times, and this time has afforded a much and huge experience in this field. And of course, in line with the resolution of the NEC, when the NEC said on the 20th of June, they had given me compliments to say I've done well, and they believe I should not, it should not just be saying acting, I should be the CEO till December, which I've taken. And they said because the process of appointing the CEO have started, they also recommended that I put my CV in so that I be considered for a permanent position, and that I'll be doing. That then takes care of your first question. The second question, we are not going under any financial troubles. Of course, like any other company, we were affected by COVID, and we are not using COVID as an excuse. The money for Bafana players had to come from a sponsor. A sponsor had issues that he did not have complement of staff. You know, there are procedures which needs to be followed. And as soon as the sponsor had paid, we settled with the team. And to show you that we are not going under any financial troubles, and you will look at that we have paid all our constituent groups. We have paid our regions. We have went to Legacy. I personally made the case for them. They all got 125,000 to keep them running during these tough times, because landlords want the rent monies. And we continuously pay them every month. There are 35,000 grants. And we have paid all teams. When I took over, it was just a bad picture on teams not receiving their monies. We have directed the resources there, and we'll continuously do so. And we thank the sponsors. We got relief fund from both CAF and FIFA, which will be assisting in running of this association. So This association is not going down anytime soon, and this association is meeting its financial obligation. In fact, when we joke within, we are saying maybe we were fortunate to report a 74 million loss in the past financial year, because that it has really trained us. We are trying to save monies from all aspects. We have changed the way we used to do things, and that in itself has brought a lot of savings, and we are looking forward to this coming financial year, and we think we're still gonna do well. We will report the improved financial position for this association.
CEO, can I just ask back to the referees? I know there was the issue of kits, referees kits with the the outsurance kits and stuff. Should the PSL return? Have you guys resolved that kit issue as yet?
The kit issue, we, of course, the matter was heard by the arbitrate advocate Paul Pretorius, who is a senior counsel, and we've been waiting for the award from him. And he had said because he's busy with state capture, he will give us as soon as possible. So we are just waiting. But as far as the kit issue, of course, when we don't have that ruling, the referees will not be using outsurance. But as we did throughout the seasons, the referees will have a kit to be in and officiate the games.
I think the ruling or the protocols is that they have to change at halftime. Will that be the case then? Will they have enough kits to change at halftime?
We will meet that as the association will ensure that they have what they require to meet.
Thank you. Chair?
CEO, this is not my question first. I've got two questions. I just wanted to have a follow-up question to Chair's question. And so the issue of the kit applies in the tournaments or competitions sponsored by the banks, right? In terms of
the decision which was jointly taken, because it was not a court decision, it was a joint agreement to say, pending the resolution of the dispute, in the Premier Soccer League, we will not use outsurance. And then in the Nedbank Cup games, we'll not use outsurance. For Let Africa, as you have seen, we are using outsurance. For any other tournaments, yes, we are using the outsurance kit.
Okay, now to my question. Because some of the questions have been taken out by some of your responses, because I wanted to ask you about the relief funds that have come from FIFA and CAF, because part of it, I think it's got also some conditions to say this part can only be used for women's football. So I wanted to know, maybe in terms of the allocation on the use of these relief funds from FIFA and CAF, how are you going to do that? And my original question also was going to be about something. I know it's a delicate time to talk about it now, because most companies, including some of our companies, are cutting. In your case, you are sponsored by SAA. We know what's happening there currently. And the last time I checked, I think even your predecessor, he had spoken about being very close to securing a sponsor for the National Women's League. Are there any potential sponsors you've been talking to where you've been affected during this period?
Well, Velile, let's separate the two. Of course, there are huge impact on many companies, including your company, which has came back to say, because you don't have any content for us, we'll be holding on the sponsorship monies. SAA troubles are well reported, we all know them. But on top of that, the getting and recruiting of sponsors is a continuous exercise. And I can tell you, despite these difficult conditions, there are two prospective sponsors which I'm, since I took over, I'm engaging with them. And I hope soon we'll conclude and agree to a deal, but we are still talking, and it's a continuous process, the engagement of sponsors. Then you asked about the relief fund. And I think this relief fund, people needs to understand it within its context. Within its context, because most of people speaks about it as if SAFA, FIFA is now saying this is the money, use it, you don't have to account for this money because of COVID. FIFA has now came with what they call the COVID relief fund. Initially, when people were making noise that there is funding which has came in, FIFA had said, on your monies which we give you annual, we'll give you those monies instead of giving you in July, we'll give you before. And that's what they did with the 500 US dollars, the 500 million US dollars is the annual thing, and you still need to work on your administration, you still need to account. And they had said they looked at their reserves. Now, we had a meeting with FIFA on Monday. After having a look at their reserves, they decided to give all association the relief fund. That relief fund, of course, comes with conditions. It will not be a 1.5 million US dollars coming at once to all federations. There is a 500,000 US dollars which will come to the association, and its condition is that it must prepare national teams. It must also address the administrative shortfalls where you need to deal with administrative issues. It will come at the end of July. And there is a 500,000 US dollars which is meant for women football. And in that meeting, it was made clear that the guidelines will be sent on that one. And then later they will give the organization 500,000 US dollars also for admin. And all those monies are subject to strict guidelines which FIFA will be giving. And they had said they still needs to be audited, and the audit report still needs to be submitted. So those monies are very clear, and in terms of how they need to be used, and the guidelines are there to say they need to be used, and the association will use it in terms of those guidelines.
John, to wrap it up for us.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Just to ask, in terms of, obviously, I just want to talk a bit about going back to the PSL and SAFA and the PSL. The public perception, and certainly the perception from a lot of areas, is that SAFA and the PSL just don't get on, and that this has caused a delay in the season starting. And I know you've commented on this before, but given that obviously you've both been having different communications with government, received different letters from government, this is only adds to that perception. Do you, as SAFA CEO, agree that there are, say, steps that can be taken to improve this relationship, that there is a relationship that needs improving between yourselves and the Premier Soccer League?
Well, I have always said I don't see the problem, you know, like you said, I like what you said, that perceptions are perceptions. And, you know, in a democratic environment like this, you have differences. And when I differ with a colleague, or let me take it to a home situation, when I differ with a family member, it does not mean that our relations needs to be repaired. It's just to deal with the issue at hand and resolve it. I mean, I don't know how much more do we expect, because the chairperson of the National Soccer League, who's a special member, by virtue of him being the chairperson, he is the vice president of SAFA. He attends the meetings of SAFA. PSL has representation in the SAFA meetings. The Joint Liaison Committee, when there was a need for it to sit, it sat and dealt with issues. And the fact that there are disagreements here and there will not totally say the relationship has problems. Because, well, now let me wear my cap as a lawyer. A legal relationship is governed by a document, and the Constitution is clear on how the PSL and the association needs to relate. We often make mistakes of saying, no, there is a problem because, you know, the media officer of the league and the media officer of SAFA are not talking same language, or they do not agree. Those are personal relations. As far as the documented relation is concerned, one does not see a problem. And of course, there are challenges, and some of the challenges which one has put is that the communication protocol put by the government and not followed. It's a challenge which need to be addressed, but of course it can't be addressed by the league and SAFA without the involvement of the government. So we will we will still go back to table and address issues of disagreement.
But so to say, the fact that you as SAFA and the league were meeting for the first time in the JLC for over 18 months, do you think this is in reflection of these lines of communication?
I still believe that you might have got it wrong. Yes, it might have taken time for the two structures to sit. They said when there was an outsurance matter. They said again when Mr. Mokoena was still the CEO, there was a JLC which was called and it said, corrected and spoke about issues to do with football. So 18 months is exaggeration. It's not 18 months. I know it's what is out there, but there were meetings. And of course, when there is no issues, you don't want to call meeting where you don't have an agenda because you don't have issues of mutual interest which needs to be discussed, because then you're going to call a meeting and there are no issues to be discussed. I'm a fan of saying all committees of SAFA meet for a specific reason. And for instance, there are those which are special in their way, like your ethics committee. Your ethics committee, if there are no issues which needs to be attended to, they will not meet. Because what you are saying about the JLC, yes, I agree with you that maybe there is a need, maybe you should be suggesting that there is a need for them to meet more often. Maybe it will do wonders, but let us not over-exaggerate that it's 18 months, others are saying it's 6 years. So yes, let us not over-exaggerate. Let us deal with things in their as factual as possible. But I take your point that maybe when they sit, we need to find a situation where they continuously sit. It may do well to the relations and dealing with issues of mutual interest, unlike waiting for government to say meet and come with one voice policy. That point is noted, but let us not over exaggerate, my brother.